So then we are back with more information regarding the renewed covenant from the Aramaic English translation, and there are many other topics related with the faith and regarding the messianic lifestyle. And we understand from the scriptures in Romans, the 8th, 9th, 10th, then the 11th and then 12th chapters. Those were then obviously given to the Gentiles, and in particular the 12th chapter then states a very interesting part, and then previously the previous chapters they are also involved with it, but having then the understanding from the 12th chapter, and there is a portion of it regarding the renovation of your minds. Okay, it states then he himself, Shaul, then he would plead with the people, therefore, my brothers, by the mercies of Elohim, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. What does it mean? He said to be focusing in the Mashiach and not to be involved with indulgences of the flesh, sexual perversion, and what the flesh brings. And then be then yourselves a people that would be dedicated to discipline. And then these obviously is then an area that a person would be then pleasing Elohim. Then, and be not conformed to this world. In other words, have a stand before Him and have standards before Him. But be then transformed by the renovation of your minds. So what does it mean? First, when Shaul then was then preaching and teaching to the Gentiles, he then began to understand, began to teach the renovation of the mind from the Hebrew perspective. Okay? Because later came then the pagan codex. The pagans, they came around and they began to switch around the scriptures. Best example given, Cornelius did not have a vision, and then Johanna never wrote Revelation while in the island. Those were made it up. And then the bodies coming from the dead in a bodily form while in this first earth never existed. It was made it up. You yourselves going to heaven to judge other nations was made it up. But this specific part of it comes from the Hebrew understanding and states the renovation of your minds. In Hebrew, being acquainted with the Hebraic lifestyle, and obviously meant in the spirit. Okay? So then later in discern what is then the perfect desire of Elohim. So he starts then with the most basic understanding of being part of the Mashiach. Control the desires of the body. This means lusts, means having multiple relationships, going to bed with other people, understanding the principles that God gave Shaul, and then he would then relate what it was. Then he began to teach them the relink with the Creator, but with the relink would come then guidelines. Okay, he was a shaliach. A shaliach means dual role. The relink that was broken in Adam, and he began to teach also the kingdom to come government. And he gave guidelines. So then the renewing of the mind is then in Hebrew. Do you think the people had then the 4 Gospels and then had Romans and the 1 Corinthians? No, was far gone in the future yet. They only had the instructions from the Torah. But Shaul couldn't shove the Torah down the people's throats. He had to come up with guidelines. and then became renewing of the mind. So when a person then is relinked, and a person repents, and then begins to understand the Hebraic understanding of the lifestyle in the Mashiach, a person then repents and then is baptized. Is it true? A person must be born again of the water and of the Spirit. So what Yohanan did prior of the Mashiach is also valid. It's an indication before the world that the past, what you meant is you made a declaration first to yourself and of the world that you are going to be obedient to the faith. It doesn't mean we're going to be perfect, but you are then engaged in being with the Mashiach. So then, prior of the baptism or mikvah, then you are relinked. The spirit then is reborn. The relink is reborn. But as a babe, you must drink the pure milk of the Word. That's what Shimon said. What does it mean? The basic understandings of the Hebraic lifestyle in the Mashiach. Obviously. So then when a person reads the scriptures in the Hebraic light of understanding, then a person becomes to grow then in the Spirit. So then later, then the Spirit, when he is somewhat mature, then takes over the soul. What does it mean? This is the part that people get confused with it. Soul and spirit, they are not the same. That's what the vast majority of the people get absolutely mixed up with. But from the Hebraic understanding, there are levels: body, soul, and the spirit. Those are distinct. They are not the same. The body is the outside flesh. Your soul is composed by the first, second, and third parts. The first then comes the will, emotions, and the intellecto. Gathering of information, intellecto. The emotions, being angry, sometimes not, or being content. Those are examples of the emotions. And then comes the will. Then your own power to make decisions. So the first, second, and thirds are the main understandings of the soul. But those, unfortunately from birth, they are contaminated. Each person born away from the Mashiach, they are born with evil spirits. When a person comes to the Mashiach, then through the studies of the Mashiach, then the evil in a person becomes to be evident. And then becomes a fight, a spiritual fight for the soul of the person. Couple of situations. There are the spirits in a person that remained, your decision you made in staying with the Mashiach, and the spirit that was reborn. So then your decision in making your spirit then to grow depends upon yourself. Of your decisions of being with the Mashiach. The more you make a decision to be with the Mashiach, the more you grow in the spirit. And then the evil in you becomes then secondary and becomes then in a place where it subsides. However, there are legal requirements, and then you have to start then being more active in becoming more like the Mashiach. That's when then the spirit begins to grow. Renewing of the mind with the Hebraic understanding of the scriptures. Soul and spirit, they are not the same. So what does it take place? Since the Spirit is the only part of us reborn that can receive information from heaven, and that's via then Ruach HaKodesh and His influence. You are not inhabited by Ruach HaKodesh, you have the influence of Him. And then as you begin to give Him, the Mashiach, the first priority in your life, then the character of the Creator becomes then yours. Then His emotions, His will, and His intellectual, in a gradual sense, becomes yours. You earn it by spending time and reading and being with Him. You don't understand the way it takes place, the transformation, because it is spiritual, but it's based upon your decision of being with Him. So it's the time of purifying. You purify yourself with the Word. When you face decisions that you think they are not in line with the Creator, then you consult His Word. In Aramaic, not in the regular Bibles. You have to consult in Aramaic. It's the closest that we have from the Hebrew. So then you begin to acquire the character of the Creator through His Son. So then you begin to filter in yourself. But it has to be done via the Hebraic understanding of the Scriptures, not the Greco-Roman. Because the Greco-Roman, they try to be in control themselves, whereas the Hebraic understanding, you submit yourself. But when you submit yourself, you gain ground. In other words, then it pushes you forward. If you do the contrary, the more pride you acquire, the farther away then you are from the Mashiach. Do you understand the point? The more people they cling to the Greco-Roman copy of the Word, the more pride they acquire, the far away they become from the Creator. In Hebraic understanding, the more you submit, the more you further your walk with Him. That's why the regular copy of the Bible out there is absolutely a lie. There is no judgment to come, because if people they don't obey and the level where they are at in the faith, they are judged. That's past tense. There is no going to heaven to judge other nations. Because if a person is not obedient in the level of faith given, we Gentiles, we have the renewed covenant instructions. The set-apart people, the Hebrews, they should be in camps, being obedient 100% to the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. That's where the church is at. We congregate outside of the camps, but we don't have leaders over us. No pastors, no teachers, no evangelists, no prophets, neither miracle workers. We receive the ministrations from the set-apart people, the Hebrews, in their camps. That's where ministry comes from. Ruach HaKodesh, the 7 spirits of Elohim, 7 functions. And then more and more we renew our minds. What is the day of observance? The 7th day, the Shabbat. Not the first day. The first day is pagan, is the mark of the beast. So then regarding then the renewing of the mind, a person then has to make a decision. Either yielding to the desires of the flesh and being sin and far away from the Creator, or you do the reverse. You submit to Him, the Mashiach, and then you further yourself in your spiritual walk. Because the Greco-Roman countries, they are busted. The Greco country is ruined. The Roman country is ruined. Our country is nearly ruined. There is a link over there, doesn't it? Because they have taught the false Messiah. The true Messiah is from the Hebraic understanding. Shaul said, 2 Corinthians 11:4, if then any person comes to you and preaches to you any other Messiah than we have preached to you, then be sure you have the false Messiah. A Messiah that breaks biblical law. First day observance is the mark of the beast, whereas the seventh day, the Shabbat, was a day established for observance. People come together and share, and they come and learn together and they learn. True Messiah versus the false Messiah. That's why in later times Shaul would say that people would concoct for themselves then teachers with itching ears. Rather than being obedient, then they are disobedient. Without understanding that he came, that the first time, the Creator, to complete the first half. He came to complete the spring feast. Only half of the work done. And then some people say, oh, we trust in him that he came to do his job, and then we are trusting the finished product. He didn't finish yet. He only finished a half. He's coming to do the other half. That's Revelation. Autumn feast. But prior of these events, then we have the personal victory or the personal transformation. And the personal transformation is done with the renewing of the mind in Hebraic understanding, not in Greco-Roman understanding. In Greco-Roman, the person wants to be in charge every time. Whereas in the Hebraic understanding, we submit. The perfect example is when Yahweh then was with the disciples going around and they were teaching and preaching, and they came in for a meal. They went in a house and they were dusty. Back in those days they had servants that would wash them. And there was no servant in the house, so Yahweh himself had a towel over there and some water here where he went around washing. And then he came to Shimon, strong-headed, his strong personality. No, you're not going to wash me. And then he said very sternly, if you don't let me do it, then you have no part in me. Because he was teaching them. In my kingdom, you must be a servant. You must submit. If we don't submit to the Messiah, we have no part in him. Much more so than if we break a biblical law. Because he came to clean up the rabbinic laws from the biblical laws. Maintaining the biblical laws pure. The day of observance is the Shabbat, not the first day. The first day is the mark of the beast. Greco-Roman understanding wants to be always in charge. Whereas then in the Messiah, we submit to him. And then the influence of Ruach HaKodesh comes, and then he teaches us. Renewing of the mind with the Hebraic understanding of the Scriptures. Not the Greco-Roman. The Greco-Roman is bad. Places the person in front of the Spirit. Never works. Greco country is busted, is broken. The Roman country is broken. Our country is breaking. Because the whole concept of a false Messiah came from those countries. Where do you think the false name of the Messiah came from? Jesus. Where did it came from? From the deity of the Greco country, starts with Z, and then Ye, from Yeshua. Then later changed to J and became what? The deity of the Greco country became the Savior. That's why we are busted. False Messiah. There is no church outside of the camps. But then we must renew our minds before going any further, don't we? That's why then we take the time and we read from a worthy copy, Aramaic English copy. So then we are more acquainted. But much more coming up.